This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk. I am Shekhar Gupta. My guest today is somebody many call the most powerful man in India, and he's not even the Prime Minister. In fact, sometimes you might even hear him say he's not even the candidate for the job. But he's an unusual politician. He's made more difference to this country's politics than anybody else in the past quarter century. And that's a lot to say, given the fact that that century also included the last several years of Mrs. Gandhi. Here is a gentleman who's changed India's political agenda, who set the tone for our political discourse. Mr. Advani, welcome to Walk the Talk.
Pleasure meeting you.
Punctual as ever, Mr. Advani. Unusual, isn't it, for a politician?
I don't think so. I've seen many colleagues of mine very particular
But
about
unusual,
time. Maybe.
Politicians in India are known for being late, for being overweight, for being lazy.
Would that be said only about politicians?
For being indisciplined. No, but there's a stereotype about politicians.
Maybe.
I mean, you see the caricatures in politicians. It's almost like policemen. And you manage both right now.
My own view is that there has been degeneration over years and decades after independence in every walk of life. In terms of habits, in terms of commitment, in terms of values. And that degeneration affects every section of society. But politicians in a democracy are naturally under the limelight.
But, why such a strong anti-politician mood? Past 5 years, I think starting with Hawala, this thing started building up. You go to the innermost parts of India, people say, oh, politicians. And yet there can be no democracy without politicians.
That's what I say. It's only because we are a democracy that this kind of decline in standards is most perceived in case of politicians. Otherwise, now, pardon me, you are a journalist. I have myself been a journalist before coming to politics. And I know journalists, and I can say that many of the shortcomings pointed out in politicians, maybe even more in a worse form in journalists.
I think it's more complicated because a lot of journalists are becoming politicians now. I mean, not unlike you were always a full-time politician, who was also a journalist.
That's right.
But that's the most worrying part, this anti-politician mood, because you cannot run a democracy. I mean, the experience of Iraq has shown you that if you have no politicians, it's very difficult to find stability.
It's not good. And I remember many years ago, a Calcutta daily asked me questions about what do you aspire to achieve in life? I said, I am in politics. And I wish I could contribute towards changing the image of the ugly Indian politician.
And how have you made that contribution?
I think to some extent, after all, a person functioning in a society as vast and variegated as ours has to exert in his own way. If there is darkness all around, a small lamp also can contribute to fighting that darkness.
You said diverse and variegated, but we are also a funny society. I mean, look at this place. This Raisina Hill denotes the power of India, just the majesty of the Republic. Rashtrapati Bhavan in front, your own North Block behind you, South Block in front of you. The British built it. We haven't even changed British symbols. As I was walking, I was noticing. I mean, look at this pillar. I think this talks about, it says South Africa to India. It says glorifying a colonial past. And if you look at that inscription, in fact, sometimes, even when I came here as a children, I noticed this. And I felt deeply resentful. It says, liberty will not descend to a people. A people must raise themselves to liberty. It is a blessing that must be earned before it is enjoyed. I mean, only a country like India, which is so tolerant of this, would allow this. I mean, I have sometimes felt that I should get a sandblaster and scrape it off, but you will put me in jail.
I do not know whether what you describe as tolerance which should not be there is not our strength. In fact, the kind of ease with which India took to democracy is because of this innate tolerance for a totally different point of view, or rather for a diametrically opposite point of view, that India took to parliamentary democracy with such ease.
But, or is it maybe a step ahead? Is it that instead of just embracing a new point of view, we are always curious about a new point of view? So let us see what else does somebody bring to the table.
You asked me this question. I remember once about 15 years back, maybe towards the end of the 80s or the beginning of the 90s, a Canadian television team came here and interviewed me at my party office at Ashoka Road and asked me this question. He said, how come that India has survived as a parliamentary democracy while most other developing countries which started as parliamentary democracies have crumbled on the way and have taken to some kind of authoritarian rule? I said, a basic ingredient which a democracy must possess to be successful is an attitude of tolerance towards a diametrically different point of view. And this intolerance all over the world has been manifested most in the field of religion. It is only in India where the basic feeling is that all roads lead to God. And therefore,
And it's the same God.
it's the same God. And when you can have this kind of tolerance, even in the field of religion, that a person like Charvak, who was a confirmed materialist, who said, Yavat jivam sukham jivet ranam kritva ghritam pibet bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam utkutah. A person who said, okay, all this is nonsense, who teach you have good conduct so that in the next birth you would be happy. There is no next birth. This is what it is. And therefore,
But, and that fits in nicely with the philosophy of karma.
And when I say when we can be so tolerant even in the field of religion, in the field of politics, it is not at all difficult.